So according to Headset, the U.S. legal cannabis industry is going to grow to $31 billion next year, 28% growth. Clearly a high growth industry, 18 states allowing for recreational only sales, the fastest growing part of the U.S. cannabis market. What would federal legalization mean to your business, to overall sales and the industry?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Federal legalization would be a major change. We don't see that coming very soon. What's actually happening on the ground with all the stats you just said is a major bull market. The consumer category of cannabis is $25 billion of legal sales this year. And like you said, 31-ish or something like that next year. But we see it, if you zoom out 3 to 5 years, going to 75 billion. And that's a monstrous opportunity for a company like Green Thumb and others in the U.S., regardless of the U.S. federal policy.
Yeah, let's talk about U.S. companies for a second. You guys are generally called multi-state operators as opposed to the Canadian companies. They're called Canadian LPs. One thing that we don't talk about enough is that your company and companies like yours, MSOs, are the only ones with the right to sell in the U.S. The Canadian LPs can only sell up north. When you generate so much more revenue than the Canadian companies and you have access to the biggest market in the world, why do you think that, in general, investors favor those Canadian companies more? And why are they down on cannabis stocks in general? Because as we just talked about, it is a high-growth industry.
Sure. So what you said is really important. The U.S. operators on the inside of a very large moat because it is federally illegal in the cannabis industry. And so where the stocks go in the short term and what happens, more like a short-term voting machine, long-term weighing machine. And keep in mind, U.S. operators like Green Thumb and others are not listed on the New York Stock Exchange. So it's misunderstood by most investors. But the opportunity is here right now for U.S. operators because the thesis remains the same, that this is Prohibition 2.0. And the USA is the land of the brand. And we can build a branded consumer product in cannabis right here in the U.S. because state policy, like you mentioned, is a tidal wave forward. Step back a second and look at 2021. States like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Virginia all legalized. That means the governor signed the bill. The market has not turned on. So that's approximately 40 million Americans. We see this $5 to $10 billion market coming soon to the U.S.
Yeah, New York City alone expected to be about a $5 billion market on its own. I have to ask you about one other thing, supply chain issues. Over the last year, December to December, cannabis prices, according to cannabis benchmarks, down 15%. Cannabis, like a lot of other industries, facing supply chain issues, but you don't have the same pricing power. How do you overcome that and explain that narrative to investors in 2022 that you're going to have more sales, but your prices are going to go down?
Yeah, everything in U.S. cannabis is a state-to-state game. What's happening in each state by price, by product, and things like that. So the supply chain issues that you talk about that are happening to everybody, any global company, and we're investing hundreds of millions of dollars of capital expenditures to build facilities. So we're seeing that sort of thing. But the price of the product and pricing power is led by brand. And so we're offering a unique experience with things like dog walkers, Bebo, Incredibles. And we're very excited to bring it to more Americans in 2022. But it's really a 2023, 2024, and 2025 where we see a major U.S. bull market for cannabis.